I would argue, because I like to argue.
We all underestimated how hard it is to, one, win college football games, and two, transition and take over a program.
Mike Schaefer.
I was trying to kindly tell Mr. Bishop the Vikings have a chance to surprise some people, and I think that they could even win the division.
Mike Schaefer.
It doesn't seem like the kind of book where they would be hooked on meth. That got dark.
Mike Schaefer.
There he is. Mike Schaefer, Husker 24/7. He joins us every Wednesday. And we usually do these things on the video. So if you want to see our handsome faces,
very handsome,
you can do so on Stibbs TV. Man, Schaefer, I'm telling you, my son and I were sitting downstairs on Sunday, and we were so hoping the Vikings were going to win. And then it turned very sad, which unfortunately was something you predicted often on Sunday, and it came through.
Yeah, well, look, I pride myself in knowing the team of which I follow, and knowing the general pattern of how games go. People won't believe this, but they're up 13-0 going into the second half, and I told the people watching the game with me that the Vikings would be trailing by about the 7-minute mark of the third quarter. They're actually trailing by about the 8-minute mark of the third quarter. They gave up their third touchdown by the 7-minute mark, so I feel like that kind of counts. I wasn't anticipating the finish that we got for the mind-numbingly bad loss in the fourth quarter that'll be to the delight of millions that I tweeted about after they won the first quarter. But that's just what happens when Russell Wilson has the football at the end of the game. I don't understand how Pete Carroll does this every single time, and it's never the same way. Yep. And often, yes, having Russell Wilson helps. But how can they look like a team that has no business being undefeated for 3/4 of a game and then fall ass backwards into a win every time? It is just infuriating.
No, I understand.
Infuriating.
I understand. Now, do you take any positive away? Because after Minnesota gave up the lead in relative short order, I thought
they came back.
I thought the game was done. Yeah. I mean, I was expecting this to go 38-13.
You thought it could turn into last night's game.
Yeah, it could just snowball, and they did come back. So, from a team that started 0-3, do you at least take some solace that, hey, these guys got some fight, and maybe we have still a run in us?
It's kind of what I said to you guys last week. Like, I was down on this team coming into the year. They started off 0-3. All of their losses are to essentially playoff teams.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, maybe the Colts aren't a playoff team, but they might be like the 7 seed if Old Man Rivers can stay out of his own way for long enough to get them to 9 wins. But, everybody else, they lost to the Titans, the Packers, the Seahawks. Nobody's beaten those teams, they haven't been good, but they're not as bad as their 1-4 record indicates. They're probably going to be a 7-9, maybe even 8-8. There's, they have the Cowboys on their schedule. That's probably a win. I think they'll win this week against the Falcons. Look, those games against the Bears and the Lions, they have 4 of those left. It just kind of depends. If Minnesota's defense gets better, and they're still doing all of this without what you might argue is their best defensive player in Danielle Hunter, there's a little bit of hope there. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team. I hammered the under on their record, so if they could stay under the 8 wins, unless they're going to make the playoffs and do something at this point, at least I can make some financial gain out of it. But they're an okay team. I felt bad for Mike Zimmer because it was one of those decisions that he was going to get hammered no matter what happened. And any true Minnesota Viking fan knew that unless they picked up the first down, they were losing that game. It just was a result of how they were going to lose that game.
Mm-hmm.
If there's one thing that I haven't figured out, it's why they didn't go for 2. And I know we were on opposite sides of that, John. I still don't understand the decision to go up 5 relative to going up 6. If you're up 6 in that situation, a field goal wins you the game.
Right. And then obviously,
very hindsight.
Yeah.
But
I got both sides of the argument, and I thought about that as they were pondering going for it on 4th down. I thought, if they would have gone for 2 and made it, field goal makes it 9, and it's a moot point. But
here's the other thing: if you did go for 2 earlier in a game, you probably don't want your play to be a Kirk Cousins shotgun quarterback draw. I don't know. Like, I'm not an offensive coordinator, and I'd never really professed to be one, but I'm not sure I would put that right there with throwing the tight end screen against Purdue that Nebraska liked to run last year. Red zone plays that I would put in the trash along with most of Nebraska's alternate jerseys, and then just put fire, just set it on fire and just let it burn.
Shave, one more on this game. Do you think that, like Chris Collinsworth, his theory was if there's a crowd and they're going down there in the same situation and it's 4th and 1, that they actually don't go for it because it is so intimidating, they end up kicking the field goal? Do you buy that theory? Because it's an interesting thought that I guess I hadn't really thought of a month ago when we learned, like, all right, there's not going to be fans at games.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I don't, and part of it is if you just assess the situation. If you're a 1-3 team and you're playing in Seattle and you need to get 6 inches to win a game, you're going to probably go for the win if there's a crowd or if there's not a crowd. And I feel like Mike Zimmer made the right choice. Was it the best play call? Was it executed well? No, but he put the game in the hands of his offense, which is better than his defense. He put the game in the hands of his rushing attack, which ran well, and they failed him. And that's why you're sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't. If he kicks that field goal, Russell Wilson drives them down. They score a touchdown. They get the 2-point conversion. They win in overtime. Then you have the second guessing of, well, you only needed 1 yard and you ran for 200 yards. It's tough to be a coach. And people talk about the math on these things. Like, sometimes if the win is in an arm's length, and it was, you go for it. Minnesota failed.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. They were going for the win there. They're not going for we want Russell Wilson to have a long drive. No, they're going for the win. It's just like USC when they played Vince Young in Texas in the Rose Bowl. Like, they went for the win on that handoff to Lendale White. Like, they didn't get it, but I always prefer aggressiveness versus being conservative in those types of decisions.
Especially in that situation when you have everything. I mean, the running game was great virtually all night. They only had a yard to go. Honestly, I think the play makes it if he doesn't run into the back of the fullback.
Yeah. And you wonder if they go left because they had a lot of success on the left side of the line.
Right, yeah.
The right side of the line featured the guy who had the 2 holding penalties, the false start, just awful. Whatever. That's Minnesota's offensive line. And the only person here that can possibly understand would be Stibbs and the left tackle for the Broncos and his love of holding. But
Garrett Bowles.
Yeah,
his name makes me cringe.
I do feel like if they can take whatever they channeled against Seattle and they go beat Atlanta, they're going to be an interesting team after that bye week. Like, their defense is still kind of bad, but that offense, like, they have talent. I mean, Justin Jefferson was pretty quiet in that game, but Adam Thielen had 2 touchdowns. Kirk Cousins had his Kirk Cousins moments, and you just come to expect that at this point. But they'll be an annoying team for the rest of the NFC, I feel like.
All right, Schaefer. So we were talking about the quarterback situation before you came on. I'm curious, do you think, based on what you're hearing from Scott Frost right now, do you think that there's any residual effect from how the Martinez-Jebbia situation went down 2 years ago that's playing anything into this in terms of how the questions are being answered or how carefully Frost is, couching this conversation?
Yeah, I think that's a great sort of thing to discuss because I wondered that too. I asked that of Brian Christopherson. I asked that of Connor Happer yesterday because that was where my mind went pretty quickly. It went 2 places. At first, I never really considered any idea of which Adrian Martinez wouldn't be the guy taking the snap against Ohio State. So I had to reassess why I felt so confident in that. And that's what I had to do initially. And part of that was, does Scott Frost have to have a little gamesmanship here? Because there were whispers that, Luke McCaffrey's dad becomes a head coach at Northern Colorado. Maybe Luke McCaffrey's going to go play for him because he sees the writing on the wall. And Logan Smothers is really good and Lee's going to pass up, stuff like that. Like, I've heard all sorts of rumors that Luke McCaffrey could be looking to go elsewhere. Whether that's true or not, is entirely unknown at this point. But if you're Scott Frost, it probably only helps you to discuss this competition as if it's ongoing. And there's no real inherent value unless you're worried that you're going to hurt the confidence of Adrian Martinez. There's no real value to just be like, oh, yeah, there's a clear starter. It's Adrian, blah, 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 because there's enough doubt that people have. And it's quite possible Luke McCaffrey made some exceptional gains in the offseason. It's such a fun time to sort of discuss all of this because we've never had less information about a football team at this juncture of a start of a season in our lives. And so Luke McCaffrey could have turned into Superman overnight. We don't know. And everything I've heard has been exceptionally positive about him. And then it remains to be seen, maybe there is some doubt over there that Adrian could be the guy. And so you need Luke McCaffrey's head in it. You need him thinking that he's that close because you might go to him real early in the season if Adrian comes out and struggles against Ohio State or whatever. I mean, I think the point that a lot of people have been making, and I agree with it, is more than likely you're going to need both of these guys to get through your 8-game season.
Yeah,
capacity.
And kind of along those lines, I wanted to ask you if it is Luke, and I couch this by adding on to what you just said. We don't really know a whole lot this fall camp compared to normal fall camps, which we don't really know a whole lot then either. Is that more about Luke winning the job or Adrian losing the job?
Or is it more about Nebraska having to play the person that best suits the personnel for an offense that doesn't have wide receivers developed and may not even have wide receivers they want to throw to in the first? There's so many questions about this.
Yeah.
To me, you could make a compelling argument, and I don't think you'd be a crackpot if you basically said Nebraska's best chance to win is to go through their running game, and the most dynamic running of the two quarterbacks is Luke McCaffrey. So if they're going to have to run a lot and they're going to have to win with a quarterback run game, they might have to rely on Luke McCaffrey, even if Adrian Martinez is better suited for a balanced offense. But a balanced offense doesn't matter much if they don't feel like they have wide receivers to throw to. But because we don't know enough about Nebraska's wide receivers, you're just kind of forced to speculate on that. I think that Nebraska wants to be, balanced, or they want the pass to be a big part of this offense. But they've also gone, Verduzco was talking about how well Luke McCaffrey has progressed as a passing threat in this offense too. So I think it has more to do with where Luke McCaffrey is in his second year, to answer your question, Josh. But it's fresh in everyone's mind what Adrian Martinez was in 2018 and what he wasn't in 2019. And Nebraska knows that they can't ride that out in the same way that they did last year.
I want to go back to something you said at the beginning of the answer, and that was about the run game and just kind of our concerns or the unknowns surrounding the wide receivers right now. Do you think that we're going to see more of the offense that they ran out for that one drive against Ohio State last year? Do you think we could see some old school
option?
And I know that will get some people really happy and some people move on from it. But I almost wonder if in theory, of course, winning is paramount. Screw development. You just want to win football games. Is that one of the ways that they could do so?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be anything more than a sub package, though. I don't know if it's going to be, it's something you'd even see week to week. I could see it being something you trot out against a Penn State that you haven't played under Scott Frost, so it's not something that they've been preparing for. I could see it, where it is something you trot out against a Minnesota, Iowa, or a Wisconsin to throw them a wrinkle because you played in interesting games each of the last, 2 years with those programs. So I don't know. I mean, if you're talking specifically what they were doing with Dedrick Mills as a fullback and running, traditional power option out of an I form, which brought many a tear to the older folks' eyes. I think you will see that again, but I don't know if you're going to see it consistently. I think it's going to be more of a wrinkle as John Bishop reaches for a tissue there to dab away the tear.
Well, I was going to ask though about, because you mentioned not having a viable outside threat at wide receiver, but Nebraska seems to be very happy with its tight end room. I mean, Travis Vokalek's getting a lot of love. We expect Austin Allen's going to have a good season. It's a deep room in there. I wonder if there are schemes within this offense, not necessarily having to go, two tight end, I formation look, but if there are things they can do in this offense to basically just create matchup issues, essentially just go different instead of like a basketball team who plays small and forces you to guard the perimeter. This is a football team now that he doesn't have that outside threat, but they've got some guys on the inside that, you can throw passes over the middle, or maybe, you can stretch the field up the seams with a tight end.
Yeah, and look, I think that actually sort of fits into one of the things I want to see in a year in which I don't know what to expect, one thing I would like to see that I don't think Nebraska has done a particularly great job with, on offense at least, is being willing to play out of your style to suit your personnel. I mean, it took them too long to figure out that Dedrick Mills and playing downhill is what they had to do in late November, and it worked out great for them against Wisconsin, Maryland, and Iowa. What if they would have done that all year? I mean, do they have different results in some of these other games? And so if it takes them to run more 3 tight end sets, or, maybe you have it where you're going up tempo and you have Austin Allen and Jack Stoll, or Austin Allen, Travis Vokalek, or Vokalek and Stoll, and one of those guys is split out like a wide receiver, and then he's coming in as an inline tight end, and you try to create those matchups. I mean, the one thing that I have not really understood is that you have these tight ends, and it just feels like you don't utilize their height a whole lot. I mean, Austin Allen's 6'7". For as many red zone struggles as Nebraska had last year, in which I think I looked it up, and they only scored touchdowns on a little more than half of their red zone appearances, which is horrendous. How are you not getting a 6'7" guy in the field and just letting him go up and go get the ball for you? I mean, so I hope they use their personnel a little bit differently instead of hammering their head against the wall, trying to make some of this stuff work that clearly wasn't last year.
Schaefer, Omar Manning, like, level of concern right now with him after hearing what Frost had to say earlier this week.
I mean, it's sort of the same as it's been the last couple of weeks. I don't have a full grasp on the situation. It's hard for me to project him to be a consistent contributor to this team. It's really unfortunate because I think that there was a lot of people, and not just Nebraska fans, and certainly not just Nebraska media, that had high hopes for what Omar Manning might mean for this offense and the value he would provide. But if he's unavailable, it's just like anything else. I mean, if you're Nebraska, you have to be able to move on. And the unfortunate thing is they haven't developed wide receivers. They don't have anything in the pipeline ready to go. It's Wan'Dale Robinson and a lot of question marks. And, I like hearing stories about Cade Warner's leadership as much as the next guy, but it's a little concerning that is what the story is in a year in which we already have limited media access. You're talking wide receivers. Like, it's concerning. Yeah. It's absolutely concerning. If Alante Brown is banged up and he's not able to help you out, I don't know if Xavier Betts is a guy that I think by the end of the year they're going to be hopeful to get him involved, and he's got a Big Ten body, and is he going to be ready mentally and physically to help you out? Chris Hickman, is he fast enough to play wide receiver, or is he more a guy that's going to be helping you out in the run game? I mean, I don't know who the hell it is that's going to step up for them at wide receiver and opposite of Wan'Dale Robinson, but somebody has to, or this team is going to be spinning its tires a lot.
This is a question I could not have possibly dreamed of asking 6 months ago, but if we had a prop bet right now, and who knows, maybe we'll have casino gambling, in a couple of months.
Oh,
likely not.
Probably.
Who will have more catches, Omar Manning or Levi Falk?
I think you got to go Levi Falk. You have to go with the guy who's and look, that's actually not a knock on Levi Falk.
No.
I think that he has been, from what I understand from the conversations I've had, he has been more than anyone anticipated. He's really done a nice job putting himself in a position where he's going to be counted on. And whether that, my hope is for him that that's a greater contribution than they got from Kanawai Noah. But, if he's able to give you 330 yards, no one here is going to sneeze at that, because suddenly at Nebraska, 330 receiving yards, it's kind of a hard mark for people to get to it.
Schaefer, looking away from Nebraska, I'm curious now, through a month and a half of college football, what conference or team do you think has benefited the most from, it seems like the Big 12 is kind of out of the playoff race. And I know that we probably shouldn't definitively say that, but Oklahoma having 2 losses definitely changes the race. Who has benefited the most? Dare we say that the Pac-12 now is feeling a little bit better about their chances, even with so few games?
So you're already giving up on Mike Gundy and everyone else in the Big 12?
Yes.
So does the Pac-12 have a single team outside of Oregon that would count as a quality win? Like a real quality win? It
depends on how you view USC.
But are they really going to be a top 15 team consistently?
I don't think so.
No.
So then it's hard for me to see where Oregon would have to run the table. Mm-hmm. They would need someone else in the conference to win a lot of games and look good, so then they count as a marquee win. No one in the country was hurt worse by the pandemic for football than Oregon. I mean, they lost their marquee matchups with North Dakota State and Ohio State, and now only get to play teams in a conference that everybody writes off as a joke anyways. So Oregon's road to a college football playoff is almost equivalent to that of a group of 5 team. Like, people are going to have to squint and basically try to make a case for it. And Oregon even lost a little star power where they don't have Justin Herbert. And so that doesn't seem like that should matter, but I think it kind of does for the people that help to make those decisions. I feel like the Pac-12 is a little bit of an also-ran at this point. I feel like Notre Dame was helped significantly. I mean, if they end up going, 7-1 or whatever, however many games that they're supposed to play,
10, I think.
8-1, and their only loss is to Clemson, and it's respectable. I could see where they end up being an extra team in there because the SEC might just knock each other out for the most part, depending on how you feel about Georgia, Alabama. Florida's lost to A&M. I didn't see them. I really didn't. I thought Florida was in prime position to make noise this year, but that doesn't appear to be the case.
There's no team in the Big Ten.
Well, and so the Big Ten, I just don't know if you get 2 teams. I think you're already counting on Ohio State being one of those teams. So in my mind right now, the college football playoff went from being Alabama, Florida, Clemson, Ohio State to now probably Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Notre Dame. Like, I think those are the 4 teams. If I was to guess right now on October 14th, those would be the 4 that I would bet on.
What about Georgia, though? I mean, Georgia seems like they've turned it around, and we'll see what they look like this.
I kind of want to see them play a team that's at a little higher level than what they played in the first couple of weeks, where it feels like they've been able to, I don't think much of Tennessee. So, whatever in that circumstance. But we'll see with Alabama. Is that line still 5.5, Josh?
I think so. It's either 5.5 or 6.
I'm gonna lay the points there. I really think Alabama could take it to them. I really do, but I could be wrong. And, if Georgia's able to, it's the same thing with them. If they stay close with Alabama and their only 1 loss is that, but then they have to play in a conference championship game. I don't know. Does Notre Dame, are they going to play in an ACC title game? No. So they kind of get this glorious loophole that only they receive.
Notre Dame could, though, because remember, theirs is based off of winning percentage.
That's right.
But North Carolina is also undefeated, and they don't have Clemson. The ACC championship game could come down to that North Carolina-Notre Dame matchup to see who gets to play Clemson.
Yeah. So Notre Dame would potentially play in a conference title game this year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I did not know if that was like the same sort of situation that it had been in the past or not.
Yeah, and there's no divisions. It's just based on overall winning percentage in the league.
They should just do that all the time, and everybody should follow suit.
Yes.
Remember when you and I were killing divisions back before it was cool, like 5 years ago?
That was a good sports radio topic. It was a good summer radio topic. And then we probably were like, Penn State's going to win the league this year.
And we were right, but we didn't get it right.
I know, man. Hey, we were like Mike Zimmer. We made the right decision. It just, the result ended up being a little.
Was there.
Yep.
And, Ohio State just kept winning 1-possession games. It's not our.
Yeah.
By the way, the watch party we told you about yesterday is not happening.
Oh, man.
Yeah, one day after the folks at Pinnacle Bank Arena announced that they were going to invite about 2,000 fans in, free admission, and sell beer to watch the game on the big screens, they have pulled back on that now.
I guess I would imagine they probably caved a little bit to what was some public outcry on it. If they kept it like they did at 2000, I'm not that opposed to it. I'm really not. But.
Well, I wasn't either. And here's another thought, because you're going to have people that are going to go out and watch this game, right? They're going to go to the bars. They're going to go to the restaurants. What's going to be a, quote, safer public environment? 2,000 people in a 15,000 seat arena with huge ceilings and big fans, or,
full-bodied fans, John. That's what we call them now.
No, I'm saying big ceiling fans. Or going to a sports bar where, there might be some social distancing, but it's not. You're still in a much more confined area.
We'll put it this way: all of those people that might have went into PBA on Saturday the 24th are now probably just going to go to what's already going to be an overpacked rail yard as it is. I mean, I think we get so hung up on, oh, you can't do that. It's just not going to be good. There's too many people, and it's like, well, they're going to congregate somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
If you give them a space that's bigger to spread out, I agree with you. I think it's better. I mean, it's going to be really interesting, the stories that come out of Omaha and Lincoln and what sports bars look like on that Saturday on October 24th. I mean, you got the 11 a.m. kick. I think it's going to be packed. And that, there's tons of watch parties around the state. It's not like this stuff is just going to stop or people are going to be like, well, we were going to have a gathering, but now we won't.
No, I totally agree. I mean, we went out to a sports bar last Saturday and sat outside, but inside it was outside. They had a few tables that would be, marked off and said, for spacing, but it was busy.
Yeah.
It was a busy place. And that's just for a Saturday without Nebraska football. Imagine what it's going to be like because do you honestly see businesses turning people away? Especially after the year it's been? I don't.
Aren't they up to full capacity now?
I was just going to ask that question.
I
don't believe so. Because,
You're talking about in Lincoln?
Yeah. Like I said, the bar I went to, they had some empty tables on purpose that had signs on them saying that they're off limits due to social distancing.
But I think that individual restaurants are now allowed to make that determination, because I've been to some places where everything's just open.
Okay.
So I feel like some places it's just going to be, not a regular game day, but it's just going to be normal. Like all the tables are going to be available. People are going to be standing up at the bar. I mean, that's just the reality of what this is. And it's been that way in the SEC and the ACC and everywhere else that they've had these games return. And now it's just coming to Nebraska. Unfortunately for us, test numbers are up around here.
Well, Schaefer, we'll see what it's like. I mean, I plan on watching it from home. So
yeah,
I kind of wish it was a night game.
Couch.
Kind of wish it was a night game. I'd, go outside and build a little fire.
Yeah, the sun's setting early.
I'm hoping that's the way it is for Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
You know who else wishes it was a night game? Jack Mitchell, because he'd put it on his garage.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he would.
He'd probably invite us over.
But then he'd switch over to some, I don't know, Sunbelt game in which he has $3 on and he's way too over cheering on it.
Fox Sports Kansas City has an old Royals game on that he has to see.
He's in some weird dynasty college football fantasy league.
All of these things are accurate.
Yes, they are. Mike Schaefer, Husker 24/7. Schaefer, thanks. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye, Schaefer.
Have a good one.
It'll be a game week.
Dude, that is so weird. You keep saying that.
It'll be a game week.
I can't wait.
It will be
Football
a game
Friday
week.
with all the fixins, predictions, all the football. What's wrong?
Well, I mean,
what did I do? What did I? It's the first Football Friday of the year, Stibbs, and
I'm going to celebrate.
You're leaving us?
Yep.
Couldn't take this Friday off? You got to take next Friday off?
Yep.
Disgusting. Some Husker fan you are, Stibbs. Many of our listeners say, sir, we love Stibbs because he's a big Nebraska fan. We want to hear him on that Football Friday. Now I'm going to have to tell all these people that call me sir that you're not going to be on that Football Friday?
Tell him Orvis is busy.
He's dealing with his car. Deal with the Jeep.
Orvis is
hilarious
becoming
name.
one with his car.
It's so horrible. I like it.
It is.
Also, that you responded to it, that he's like,
man name.
Mike Orvis, and you were like,
I just happened to turn the cue off so I could all of a sudden hear you, and I was like, uh-oh, what did I miss?
Well, thanks to everyone who followed along on Orvis TV. More coming up, including in about 10 minutes, Steve Jones, the voice of Penn State. We gotta leave the video stream so we can get to the airport and we're just gonna have to take off from Capitol Street.
What?
Yeah.
Is that safe?
So whoever's parked in the street, get out of the way.
Get your car out of the way.
Because the wings kind of extend out
Orvis,
over the
go
curbs.
just knock some cars out of the way for us.
Yep, the Skyriders tour continues with Penn State on 1620 The Zone.